Okay, so now we're going to finish up the mix on this track. And what I've done here is I have put an extra limiter on my master fader track. And the master fader track is a very interesting track. If you take Audio Production 2, you'll see how it's a different kind of track than the rest of them because this fader is actually pre-insert, whereas the other faders are post-insert. But this extra limiter is going to help ensure that our track is as loud as it can be, but does not clip. Now, if you were a professional mixing engineer and you were sending this mix off to a mastering engineer who would be working with the stereo file or possibly the multi-track mix, but just on making it louder and giving it a good tonal balance and fitting it into the rest of the songs on an album, for instance, you probably wouldn't bother with this stage, this final limiting and compression. That's really the mastering engineer's job. But if you are just kind of learning how to do this, or you're doing it as a hobby, or you're not going to hire a mastering engineer for big bucks, then this is a pretty good way of doing fake mastering. And we do cover mastering in the second level course. So, just to recap, I have EQ and compression on every track. I have serial compression on my submix tracks. I have reverb and delay in 4 tracks there, and everything is routed eventually to the submix master, and it's all going here. Final compression, limiting, and then a final limiter. There's one more plugin we need to think about. So we're going to bounce this or export the track as a WAV file. And possibly also as an MP3. So right now, this is a 24-bit depth, 44.1 kilohertz session. And if you want to see that, you can go to the setup menu and go to session. And there it is, 24-bit depth, 44.1 kilohertz. If we were going to burn this to a CD, or if we needed to transfer it to a website that specified CD standard, well, that's 16-bit depth. And so, Pro Tools will make that switch, but we have a plugin that will help make that transfer process, that conversion process, smoother, more transparent, and cleaner. And that plugin is called Dither. So if I go right underneath my very last plugin, Maxim, I'm going to choose multi-channel plugin, and there's a whole category just for Dither. And I'm going to select Power Dither. And Dither's kind of complicated, but basically what happens is in the digital conversion process, some numbers have to be rounded up or rounded down. They have to be quantized into a certain value. They can't slide between values. And so if there is a sample or a wave or something that is sliding between values during the conversion from 24-bit to 16-bit, Dither actually adds little bits of random noise so that those values are quantized properly. So it actually adds more noise to your signal so that your audio sounds cleaner. You will not hear the noise because it's digital and it's so low. So anyway, you just put the plugin on there, and that's done. You don't have to change any settings. There are noise shaping types, and we're not going to go into those in this course. Some are better for like really transparent music like classical, and others are better for other things. But you can just put Dither on there. And then we're going to go to the edit window, and I'm going to zoom out so I can see my full session. There it is. And I'm going to select the longest track, which is probably going to be one of the drum tracks. Boom, right there. And I'm actually going to select a little bit beyond it, like that, by shift clicking. And that'll just give me some tail to work with if I need that, like for reverb or something. And then I'm going to go to File, Bounce to Disk. Now let's talk about this bounce box. I mentioned it in another video, but this is a little more in depth. So here's the bounce source, and it's going out our main outputs. That's what you want. If you were bouncing something else, maybe you were going to bounce stems for a movie, you might use a different bounce source, but we're always going to leave it on the main outputs. File type. You can choose between WAV and AIFF. This is audio interchange file format, and in the old days, this was a Windows file and this was a Mac file. These days, they're interchangeable, so it doesn't really matter. I usually just leave it on WAV. You could select MP3 here, or we can simply add an MP3 with this checkbox. MXF, don't worry about that for right now. File format is the big one a lot of people mess up. If you set it to multiple mono, it's going to give you a separate left and right channel. If you put it to summed, it's going to give you one file, but it's just mono. So you lose all the panning and delay information if it goes to the sides or whatever. So what you really want is interleaved, which is a left and a right file, but they're together in one file. Now for the bit depth, we're going to choose 16-bit, and we're going to leave the sample rate alone, 44.1. You could bounce at higher and lower rates, but we're not going to do that. And then you have a chance to name your file. So I'm going to call this large mix demo RVB, my initials, V1, version 1. And a very common thing to do in the mixing world, if I were delivering this to a client, is I would bounce this multiple times. I would bounce it like the normal way, let's say. And then I would take the vocals and I would bump them up. I would make them louder by 3 decibels and call that the vocals up mix. Or I might lower the vocals by 3 decibels and call that the vocals down mix. There's a lot of things you can do. People have different preferences, and you just want to give them what they want. It's going to go to my bounce files folder, which is fine, and it's offline. And I'm going to click bounce. And there it goes. It takes longer the more plugins you have. And so we don't have too many plugins, believe it or not. And then it's trying to import it. I must have had another checkbox. I'm going to hit cancel. I don't need to import it. If I wanted to import it, I could drop it right back in the session as a new track, but I don't want to do that. And then the last thing, of course, you want to take screenshots. So right now, I can't see most of my tracks. They're all too thick. So I'm going to go to this ruler. I'm going to hold the Option or Alt key, and I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to choose Small. And now you can see most of those tracks. I don't need that click track. And I can take a screenshot like this. And then I'll go down after that Hammond submix and take another one. And go down and take a third one. I might go to my mix window and take screenshots of that. And over. And over. So you're going to take a lot of screenshots for this project because I do want to see some of your, I don't want to see all your plugin windows, but I want to see some of them so that you can show me you understand the concepts, all right? So take some pictures, take some screenshots rather, and you're going to email me the bounced MP3 and you're going to email me the screenshots. If you email me a wave, that's probably fine too. It's not a long song.